Since the dawn of time, man has been curious. And for almost as long, the Vibes Broadcast Network has sought the truth. Investigate, discuss, explore. Okay, maybe in other episodes, but this one is just listen to the vibes.
The views and opinions of our guests may not necessarily reflect those of the host or the Vibes Broadcast Network. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes, and I'm very privileged to have Miss Ann Hintz here, and she is a spiritual teacher, a speaker, an author, and she has a rather I guess an unusual story to tell. So we're going to get into a good conversation. But first, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm a mom. I live in California. I'm from England and lived all over the world as a child and have been here in California for 33 years. And yeah, I'm sharing my story because I want people to know how powerful we are.
Okay. Now, I've read a little bit about your story, and you have kind of learned to, I guess, manipulate your body.
Yeah, I've learned to put my awareness inside my body and release resistance that I believe is in the connective tissue. And yeah, it's pretty powerful, but it was a step-by-step process to get to here.
Okay, so I know one of my favorite movies is Lucy. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but she is injected with some kind of a drug or serum, what have you, and helps her to develop mentally and use more capacity of her brain than most people. And she just keeps evolving and evolving, where she's actually able to manipulate her own body. And I'm kind of curious if that's kind of along the line the same thing. Is it different? Is it some form of I guess a meditation? I'll let you explain.
Okay, I need to watch that movie. I'd like to see it.
It's great. It stars Scarlett Johansson and Morgan Freeman. Love that movie. Love it. So check it out.
Cool. Yeah, because I'd like to know if it's the same. I believe this is using the inner eye. I believe this is the original meaning of the word insight, in that I can see inside my body, right? And I can actually hold my awareness on tension and let it go. So, but it didn't start here, right? When I first started this journey probably about 18 years ago now, I was very reactionary. I was very negative. My mind was very negative all the time. I was very fearful. You know, I had PTSD from two alcoholic parents in childhood. I found my mother dead in my bathroom when I was 19. I kind of just held on to all that stress and I didn't know what to do with it. I just kept living. So I actually had to go through something, and it was like a business altercation with a couple of other mothers. They thought I'd done something wrong. I did not think I'd done something wrong, but my mind started spinning out of control, just going over it and over it and over it. And I couldn't sleep for days. And that's when I recognized that maybe something from my childhood, maybe there's something I need to look at, because it felt like how I would react when my dad would say I'd done something wrong.
Yeah, well, and I can kind of sympathize with you. I mean, my father committed suicide. My little brother committed suicide. And then right after that, one of my best friends did the same thing. And, you know, I've tried it myself a few times, and it was very, very difficult to go on. I mean, my alcohol use, drug use, all that got really, really bad after all these instances. And I was molested as a child, and I suffered PTSD from that myself, and gone through the depression, anxiety, and got on all these medications. And I have to stress, I'm not a doctor, so I'm just telling you what worked for me. I got into meditation, and I do that if I'm going to get into a crowd or some kind of an anxiety type situation, and have been able to kind of overcome it. But I still go through those bouts of depression. Do you still have those feelings, or you just move on?
Yeah, I believe the steps I went through were permanent changes.
Mm-hmm.
So now, from what you were saying, one of the things I've realized over the years, and that I believe fully, is that the more trauma we have in childhood, the greater our capacity for spiritual growth. Doesn't mean we'll go there, but we have that capacity because we've been so far in one direction, we can actually go a long way in the other direction. So there we go. You got a great capacity there. Now, I didn't do meditation. I actually never wanted to meditate. To me, I wanted something fast. So we can talk about that. But I do believe meditation is beneficial, because I talk about the law of attraction. I really got a good, firm, I believe, understanding of the law of attraction, not in terms of manifestation, which is what people generally talk about it in that regard, but I'm talking about it on a day-by-day, second-by-second basis, right? It's working all the time. Every second of every day, we're emitting a signal, and we're attracting back based on the signal that we're emitting right now. So if I'm at peace right now, that's the signal I'm emitting, and I'm attracting peace back into my future. But if I'm anxious, or if I'm angry or frustrated, that then is my signal, and I'm attracting that back into my future. So in terms of meditation, right, you tend to get a quiet mind. You tend to come to peace. So in that moment, you've actually changed your signal, and you're attracting peace back into your future. What I wanted to do was change my base signal so that I didn't have to meditate to get there. I wanted to be that change. I wanted to be different. And that's what I realized, that the techniques I used actually changed me at a physical level.
So how do you get to that point?
Well, the first technique that I used, and I didn't recognize it, I actually went to a holistic physician, and he used the technique with me because he realized I was really too stressed for what I should be. And it's called emotional freedom technique. It's also called tapping. It's a little weird because you kind of tap on your body as you're talking through a memory. And that tapping actually releases the stuck energy from the body, releases those emotions that have been held inside. And for me, the big thing was my mother's death. So it had been, it was 2 decades later when I started this work, and the tears were still just under the surface. But this one session with this doctor actually released those tears, and I walked away being able to tell the story of her death in my mind without the emotions there. So I knew at that point that, well, I recognized that the emotions were just stuck in the body, and that they could disappear. So that's when I started using EFT, like every day. I started noticing when I was emotional, right? And that's one of the key things. It's not always easy to do. It's to stop yourself and recognize, oh, I'm getting angry, or I'm getting frustrated. So that was kind of an ongoing journey. But I started tapping when I noticed that I was emotional. And the tapping would allow me to come back to peace in the moment, right? And then I knew I'd changed my signal, right? So I'm changing my future every time I'm tapping, because my signal inside of me has changed.
Okay.
So I noticed my mind was becoming quiet. It was becoming more peaceful. So I wanted to do more. And I wrote down every emotional memory I could think of. So like every trauma and every negative belief, everything from my childhood, I wrote down, and I tapped through one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night until I'd gone through them all. And then my mind just became quiet. And I didn't even know it was possible. It felt so different because it was not my normal. It felt like I was living in a different reality because the voices in my head were no longer there.
Oh, wow. For me, I drowned myself in the alcohol and the drugs, and I didn't give myself a chance to feel. And now years later, I regret that because I didn't go through those emotions that I should have. So for someone like me, would I still be able to, do the EFT and get through this point?
Absolutely. Now you've put some layers on top of those emotions, right? Now you added regret to the top, right?
Yeah.
So with tapping, what we're doing is we're acknowledging how we feel and allowing it to be okay. So we're releasing our current emotions. So the first thing that you would tap on is, I regret that I did this, right? I regret that I didn't feel those feelings. And once the regret has gone, then you might feel comfortable looking at one of those traumas and feeling the feelings. So with tapping, we tap through some specific points on the body, the same points each time, as we're talking through one of those traumas, right? So with my mother, I talked through waking up, finding it quiet, right? She normally had the radio on and really needed to go to the bathroom. So I went to the bathroom and then I found her there. And then everything that happened after that, I just talked through it, felt those feelings, released them through the tapping, and then go back to the beginning of the story again, tell the story again. And this time there would be more detail would come up, right? Because we've let go of some of those surface emotions, more detail will come up, and then you tap through that. And you just keep going back through the story again and again until it's just a story, right? There's no emotions left in the story anymore. And at that point, it's no longer part of your signal. It's not putting off an energetic signal saying, I want to feel these feelings again in the future, right? Now they've released from the body. They're not attracting anymore.
So I've got to learn to let go of the blame that I put on myself, mostly from my little brother. It's been nearly 22 years since it happened, and I'll still find myself crying sometimes. I want to let go. It's just so hard.
Right. And in my experience, the way to do that is actually to accept the blame, right? To allow that to be okay. Okay, it was my fault, right? Allow that to be okay, even though maybe it wasn't, right? Maybe it wasn't realistically your fault, but if that's what you feel, that needs to be acknowledged and accepted. And once it is, that's when the shift happened. When something is fully accepted, there's a shift.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then you've gone through the tapping. What's the next step?
So this whole process, I realized, is opening up of the subconscious mind, as I said. And as that happens, our awareness increases, right? So when I started this journey, I wasn't aware of how I felt because I'd suppressed it for so long, right? So I didn't know if I felt angry or frustrated during the day. I just was. But I started to become aware of how I felt during the day. And then at a deeper level, I became aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions, right? So we use the word frustration or sadness or blame even, but really we're describing a set of physical sensations that we're feeling that we then give the name to, right? So if we're feeling frustrated, I can feel that in like my solar plexus and my stomach area, right? That there's a tension there, and I call that frustration. But I didn't know I couldn't feel those tensions when I started this process. I became aware of them as I let go of my outer baggage.
Oh.
So then once I was aware of those physical sensations, instead of tapping, I would hold my awareness on the sensations. I would feel them because that's where the stuck energy was. So they'd want to be felt and acknowledged and accepted. And when that tension was accepted fully, it would release. Just like using the EFT, right? Those words, fully accepting the blame, then fully accepting the physical tension, it would release. So I would catch myself when I thought a thought that had emotion behind it. I would think that thought, feel the physical sensations, allow it to release, be acknowledged and release. And then I would think the thought again. And then again and again, do the same thing over and over again until the tension underneath that thought had released. So this is like the same thing that I was doing with EFT, but now it's at a deeper level inside the body.
It's my understanding that holding on to a lot of that stuff causes physical ailments like gut problems and heart problems and things like that. So if I go through these steps, will that help to heal a lot of those problems? Because I do have a lot of ailments.
I do believe so. I believe that even the words, the emotions, the stories, the traumas we hold, they're actually stored physically in the body as dis-ease, right? Tension stored in the body. And I believe that's what my story kind of shows. It's like, it's that tension is held physically in the body, even though we don't know it to begin with, right? I had no idea and didn't even know that an emotion had physical sensations, right? But now I do. So I know that that tension from trauma is actually stored physically in the body, and we can focus on it and accept it, and it will release, and it will release that tension and disease in the body.
Now you said there's 3 steps, so let's move on to that one, because I'm anxious.
Okay, now people,
I'm feeling anxious.
I couldn't have done the 3rd step without doing the first 2. I don't know that anyone could, because I don't actually hear people talk about this next step. So instead of tapping at night now, I would actually lay on the sofa and I would bring a collective trauma to mind, right? Because we all had our own feelings around collective traumas like 9/11 and Fukushima and Ukraine, right? We have our own feelings. So I would think about 9/11, feel all those emotions and physical sensations inside of me and let it go. Feel it again and it would dissipate. So I just do that over and over again. And then at some point during this process, I actually realized I could keep my awareness inside my body after the tension had gone. So the only way to kind of explain this is, imagine you have a toothache or a stomach ache, right? You can focus with your mind, you know where it's coming from. You can pinpoint it almost. But once the pain has gone, dissipated, you can't focus again where it was because it's gone. I found that I could put my awareness back inside my body. So I'd never heard of this before. I didn't know what I was doing. I was kind of just playing. It's like, well, can I do it again? I've done it once. Can I do it again? And I found I could. And then I started to move my awareness around inside, and I could find tension. I could feel no tension, and I could feel where there was tension. So I would put my awareness on the tension, hold my awareness there until there was a shift, do it again and again and again until it dissipated. So now I'm at an even deeper level. I'm doing the same thing. I'm accepting and acknowledging the tension, but now I'm inside the body as opposed to the sensations or the words. So I would do this over and over again. Right? And at some point, it took many months before I could actually get my awareness inside my head. And once I could get my awareness inside there, it's like I had no idea. There was so much pain inside my left cheek, and the forces pulling my bones out of alignment were just incredible. I had no idea how much pain and tension I had held in my head for decades, like 5 decades at this point. So I wasn't shown that until I was ready to actually accept it and start working with it. Right. So over the time, I just kind of focus on the tension, let it go, just over and over again. At some point, I actually felt and heard something ripping. Didn't know what it was, a little scary at the time. And I did some research at that point. I realized it's the connective tissue. It was something holding the connective tissue tight, a bond, and it was releasing. And so I just kept doing that. I realized it was okay. Probably wasn't hurting myself because I'm just releasing inner tension and it can't be damaging in any way. So I just kept doing this over and over again. And, I could actually feel at some points my bones relaxing into a new position. So that's why it was really nice last year to get those x-rays. I have new x-rays from last year compared to 2013, and actually see that my eye sockets have aligned, and my jaw, which was way off to the side, is now more in the center. And my neck, I have scoliosis, and my neck has been straightening. My whole body has been untwisting, and I've actually grown 1/2 inch as a 55-year-old. So that's kind of cool.
And see, that was something else I was going to ask you about, because I had read, you said you had grown 1/2 inch. Now, inevitably, somebody's either watching this or listening to this, and they're going, okay, this lady's crazy. And, as most reasonable people, they would probably say, how is this possible? But my show is always open to new ideas. I'm open to new ideas myself. I have tried some things that my guests have suggested, and I've seen results. One being the past life regression. I'm pretty sure you've heard of that. And even if it wasn't real, I believe it was. but the benefits from going through that and, like pinpointing certain ailments that I have can be contributed to past life. Why can't this work? That's why I'm open to it. So I mean, I want to see the x-rays, but it part of me is like, yes, this is real. And then part of me is like, what? Hey, but I'm a ghost hunter. So that tells you anything.
Well, my x-rays are on my website or my PodMatch page. They're there too. Yeah, anyone can see them. I mean, if it wasn't me, and I didn't want to boast or anything, I would say, oh my goodness, I had no idea that was ever possible. I mean, I didn't know those eye socket, those bones could move, right? Because they get fused, right? So to see what this has done, the center of my face has kind of opened up. I mean, it just blows my mind that we can do this with focused attention, right? I'm not using anything outside of myself to do it. I'm just feeling tension, allowing it, accepting it, and it shifts.
So would the same method work, say, for losing weight or anything? I don't know, like arthritis.
Well, I believe so, absolutely, right? Because what I'm doing when I go on the inside is I'm feeling, hey, what's calling my attention? Where is the most pain or tension that I'm being called to? And I work to focus on that and allow it and release it. And I don't know where it's going to release at that point, right? Because I believe I'm putting my awareness through the connective tissue. I believe that's where our soul resides. And that's what I'm looking through. So I might release something in my left cheek, or I might focus on something in my left cheek. And what releases is something in my right neck or down the right side of my body. It's all connected. So if we have pain, right, with something like arthritis, I would use tapping first, right? I would use tapping about the pain I can feel in which joints. I would use tapping about when it first started, right? What happened, what traumatic thing happens within 6 months prior to it first coming on. I would tap about all my beliefs around arthritis, about my history, anyone in my family, anyone I've known who's had arthritis, right? Because all of those memories and the emotions are stored inside of me. And my beliefs, right? So, and my beliefs about arthritis, because some of us, right, believe that things are going to get worse and worse, and right, at some point I'm not going to be able to do all these other things, right? So those beliefs, I would also tap on those. And that whole process of letting go of those emotions will release things on the inside of the body. And then who knows what can shift.
You're going to upset a lot of doctors out there. You're going to take their jobs away from them. Now, I released my biggest pain over 10 years ago when I divorced my first wife. So,
right. So even the words you use, right? My biggest pain, right? So that in itself, that belief is something that I would tap on. It's like, she was my biggest pain, because that belief you have stored inside of you. Yeah, and to release that so that you don't think that anymore, or no emotions come up as you say that anymore, that itself will also release something inside of you.
Okay, so and you teach this, correct?
I'm sharing my story mostly. Yes, I want to speak to audiences. I want to help explain that we have this power. But I do have a YouTube channel that has videos on. It's got a demonstration for EFT, a demonstration for feeling your feelings. Because we have so many emotions now, right?
Boy.
Everything that's happening. I mean, one of the key understandings that I have is that we tend to blame things outside of ourselves, right? We blame politicians, or we blame climate things, or even if we see someone else having an argument, two other people outside of us having an argument, we don't think there's anything we can do about it. But our part of any of that is how we feel about it. And we can change how we feel, right? So if there's a politician we don't like, that's our dislike, that's our feeling inside of our body. And we can let go of that, right? We can tap, I really hate. And I absolutely, you want to say exactly what you feel. So people say you shouldn't hate, right? Or whatever those negative emotions were. I tapped for a long time on I hate myself. After I'd done a lot of this inner work, I tapped on that for like 2 or 3 hours over a period of weeks until it had no longer had any power over me.
Yeah,
They're
that's
just
something I
words.
have a problem with.
They're just words for me now.
Yeah.
Right. To begin with, there were emotions that would come up, as I tapped on that. But if we really hate, that's what we would tap on, right? I hate that politician, right? I really, really hate that politician. I would tap using those words until that hatred had dissipated, right? Because I'd much rather have the hatred be gone than have it sitting inside of me, right? As being part of my signal. So on any of these external things that are happening, if we come to peace, that is then our signal that we're emitting. So that's how we get peace back into our future.
If that was the case, I'd be tapping myself till I was bruised all over.
A little bit at a time.
I hear you. I hear you. Now, we live in a society where, I mean, you've got a computer in your hand. You want something, you can have it on your doorstep the next day, or even in some cases in 20 minutes or so. It's everybody wants now. There's no patience anymore. I mean, you remember when we were kids, we'd order something in the mail and it'd be 6 weeks later before you got it. And that anticipation was awesome. But reality, people are so used to getting things right away. So say you have someone out there that wants to start doing this, but they don't have the patience. They get discouraged real easily. How do you encourage them to continue to do it?
Well, one of the things really helped me was understanding that law of attraction and asking myself during the day, okay, how am I feeling right now? And do I want to feel this way again in the future? And usually the answer was no, right? So if I don't want to feel this way again, I need to change how I feel right now. And it can be as simple as taking a deep breath, right? Because that changes our signal. But EFT is easy to learn. You can learn it in 5 to 10 minutes. It's really easy to learn. It was given away by the person who developed it for free, Gary Craig. So you can go online and you can learn it. The key thing to realize is a lot of people have gone more to the positive with EFT. And the positive it's the negative that's stored in the body. So EFT works really well on the negative. So I would recommend sticking with the negative, because now I can sense in the body, right? I know that there's no tension or there's tension, and there's lightness or dark. The tension is the darkness, and that's all we have to let go of, because the light is underneath the darkness. Once we let go of the darkness, then we are light. We are perfect beings. So EFT works really well on the darkness, and it doesn't take long to do, right? Learn EFT. Next time you go to the bathroom, just feel what you're feeling, frustration with someone or anger with someone or sadness or fear. Just tap, like, I'm afraid right now. I'm afraid right now. Just tap on those points as you're saying, I'm afraid right now. And it will let it go. I have one story that was really kind of fun. Is I went on an airplane before COVID, and there was a baby in his mother's arms, and he was screaming. You know how some babies really don't like going on airplanes, and he was screaming all the way up to altitude and just kept screaming. And I asked the father, they were a few seats away from me, a few rows away from me. I asked him if he would swap places with me, and then I asked the mother if it would be okay if I tapped on her child, and she was okay. So I tapped on him, just I think 2 or 3 rounds through the points, and he fell asleep in his mother's arms. Right. And it was such a relief for everyone on the plane not to have this child screaming anymore. But it was so fast. Right. I don't think the mother really understood what had happened. So it really is a deceptively powerful technique. You don't really think as you're learning it, as you're seeing it, that it's really going to do much, but it's deceptively powerful.
Jeez, I need to find somebody to help me with that when I have those nights I can't sleep. I'm seriously.
Right. And you would talk through the thoughts. You would actually acknowledge the thoughts and the feelings that you're experiencing as to why you can't go to sleep, right? We want to suppress them. We're so used to suppressing them. It's like, don't think that, don't feel that, but really, it wants to be felt. It wants to be thought. and acknowledged. And that's when the shift happens.
Now, I am all about positivity, but I want everyone to know as much as I try to be positive all the time, it's very, very difficult. You've got all kinds of situations, whether it be health, be money situations, always something drama wise in the family. I try to steer away from drama, but somehow it still creeps up on me. But I would like to try this method to maybe I can get past some of this stuff. I mean, there's some pretty deep stuff going on around here, and a lot of people are going through a lot of stuff. I don't want anybody to think that I think my problems are worse than yours, because I mean, who knows what folks are going through. There's a lot of depression, especially since all the lockdowns, and you've got some people who were locked down alone, and self-deletion has kind of rose since all this pandemic. And I think we need to find alternative ways to help to cope with these things and to get past them. And
Can I say something there?
Yeah. Sure.
So one of the key things you said then was try to be positive.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a few years trying to be positive, and what I realized is when we try to be positive, we're actually suppressing the actual thought that we're thinking. Right? We're thinking we shouldn't be thinking that, and we're thinking we should be thinking something else
all the time.
But really, if we actually feel that thought, think that thought, and allow it to be okay, like tap with it or feel it, it will shift. And underneath is positive thoughts will start to arise. Now, that sounds really woo-woo to me. It would have done like 10, 15 years ago. I wouldn't have believed it, but I've experienced it, and I know it to be true. Understanding and passion arises once we let go of the feelings we're feeling. So being positive is great, but trying to be positive is a different thing.
Well,
and
when you get up and you try to preach positivity all the time, you feel like you have to put on this persona and look positive even when you're not.
Right. It's a facade.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. So one of the other reasons I wanted to share my story is because there is so much more depth to life now, where I am now, than I ever knew was possible before, right? When I started this journey, I just didn't know what I know now, right? So as you go through this process, right, with the burden that we've been carrying dissipates, right? So I remember feeling so heavy in the past, like just weighed down. And that has gone, right? I feel lighter now, right? So that is a fun thing along the way. As we start to know each other, or we start to know ourselves on a deeper level, we actually start to understand life outside us on a deeper level. Like that phrase, as within, so without, is absolutely true, right? So I sense tension inside of me at a deep level now. I can sense it on the outside too, in things that are happening around the world. I see it more from an energetic standpoint than just events that are happening, which is what I used to see. Right. So that's one thing, right? That's a fun thing that happens along the way. Also, I'm more physically aligned, right? My skull is now more symmetrical. I'm more balanced on the inside. So I'm also more balanced on the outside. So that itself is fun too, right? My senses are better. I mean, some things just taste sublime to me now that didn't in the past. My singing voice, I'm not a singer, right? My dad always used to tease me about my voice, but I love to sing to myself in the car. And I think a lot of other people do too, right? But there were some notes that I couldn't get to before. And I've released so much tension inside my skull, which is like our echo chamber for our voice, that now I can sing. And I couldn't before. I could sing notes that I couldn't get to before. So there's just so much more to life. You know, that those people, I want those people who are, considering suicide or are really depressed to know that there is so much more to life if you let go of the burden that we're holding.
It's so difficult for a lot of folks out there. And I can't stress enough, try everything you possibly can, because when you leave this world, you leave devastation to a lot of people. And I mean, I want to be able to get past it, but we shouldn't have to get past it, if you know what I mean. But I mean, I'm willing to try it, and I hope somebody else out there is like, hey, you know what, I want to try it too, and see what happens. I mean, what can it hurt? You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
sometimes it's kind of scary, right? Those
Yeah.
emotions are kind of scary, and we think we're going to be annihilated by them. But I really came to the understanding that, memories, the traumas, they're just stored inside of us, right? The memories aren't anywhere else. Other people have a different memory from us. So our memories are just stored energetically inside of us. And it's our job to let it go. And it just wants to be felt. These emotions just want to be felt. They're just stuck energy. And the freedom is on the other side. My kind of second experience with EFT showed me that so clearly. Right? I went home, I learned how to do EFT after this doctor's appointment. And we had a 17-year-old cat at home who we'd been told needed a daily saline shot because his kidneys were starting to fail. And the first time I gave him a shot, my hand was shaking so much because I was so afraid of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I tapped about it. Right? I tapped about every aspect of it. I tapped about my fear of giving him the shot, about my hand shaking, about my fear of hurting him, and about my memories from all the injections I'd had in my life. And the next day, the needle just slid right in. There was absolutely no fear left in my hands. And it was such a shift. Right? That's when I started realizing how powerful this technique was, and that all that fear had just been stuck inside of me, and it could just go. I could just get to freedom on the other side of it. And so other people can do that too.
I encourage it, and I'm going to put the link to your YouTube in the description. And you have a book?
I do. I wrote down all these steps that I took in my book. It's called A Pathway to Insight.
Okay, and you can get that on your website?
Yeah, or you can get it from Amazon. You can ask your local bookstore to order it.
Okay, I'm going to put your website and the YouTube channel in the description. Is there social media folks can follow you?
I do. I have a public Facebook page. I'm really only good at one thing at a time. So yeah, but I love explaining things on there. I'm happy to interact with anyone on there. And my webpage, of course, annhintz.com, which has the x-rays you can see there.
Do you have any other advice that you'd like to share with everyone?
Just start being aware of how you're feeling during the day. Notice, start paying attention, and then just take a deep breath or tap.
Well, I thank you so much for your time, and I'm definitely going to try that. I've had people on that have talked about tapping, and I don't think I quite understood until you explained it, how that works. Now, the law of attraction, which I'm a big believer in, but I get different ideals from everyone I talk to about it. Everyone that believes in it is like, oh no, it's not like that. Or the next person says, oh yeah, it is exactly like that. It's confusing. It's very, very confusing. And I've watched the movie. I've read the books. In fact, I've still got a book in there of daily affirmations, and I've got on and I've talked about it and different things that you can do to manifest. And I admit, I feel like an infant when it comes to that. It's confusing. I don't understand why everybody's coming from different angles, but
yeah, I do have a chapter in my book about manifesting for people who are interested in doing that. I know I used to be, right? And what I've realized is, I work with the resistance, with the law of attraction, right? If there's something we want that we don't have now, it means we have resistance in us to our present moment, right? We're not happy in our present moments, so we have resistance to it. So I have asked questions to come up with that resistance that can then be tapped on. Also, if we don't have something what we want, we clearly have resistance to it, because if there was no resistance, we would already have it. So I ask questions to find that resistance that can then be tapped on. And once the resistance has gone to where we are now, and the resistance has gone to what we want, then the energy can flow.
Well, I want a KISS pinball machine. I have no resistance to that at all.
Well, you probably do. If you don't have it, there will be some resistance. We're just not aware. We're not aware of our resistance a lot of the time. I know I wasn't, for sure.
Yeah, that's the part that confuses me, because I've done the affirmations and I have focused on the positive and being grateful for the things that I have, and I don't know, it seems like I'm wrong at whatever corner I take. And it's like, oh, I want this, but I'm telling the universe that I don't have it, and then I really don't get it, and I don't know.
Yeah, there is resistance there that we're just not aware of. So yeah, it can be tapped out.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of folks out there that feel the same way I do, and they're like, oh, I tried all that stuff too, it doesn't work. I know it works, I just haven't quite gotten it down yet.
Yeah, and that was another thing that I used on my journey. I would say to myself, I know there are things that I don't know, right? And then I ask myself, so what is it they know that I don't know? What are they seeing that I'm not seeing? And I kind of use that to kind of open my mind to recognize that I didn't know everything. And I'm hoping people will even do that with this story. Say they've not heard of this before. I had not heard of this before, but to realize that it's possible and we are this powerful and we can all do this.
Well, I'm a very spiritual person. I used to be religious. Now I'm spiritual. I have a hard time with religion, and no offense to anybody out there. If you enjoy your church, you like your church, hey, I encourage it. But being in nature and just having a talk with God, that's my spirituality. And I feel it when I'm in nature. I feel it when I put my toes in the water and ground myself. And I believe this is part of that spiritual journey. So I want to take that step.
Good.
But again, thank you for your time. And for those out there, if you're new to the channel, please come back and subscribe. And for those of you who are regular to the channel, thank you so much for your support, because it's because of you that I do what I do. And until the next one, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network,